Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Carl Pauls. I'm here with Gabe Ignetti, Chris Bergen, and our special guest. Jerome Glenn is CEO of the Millennium Project, a global participatory think tank with 71 nodes and 3 regional networks around the world. They have produced the State of the Future reports for the past 29 years. Jerome is the author of Future Mind, and more recently, he wrote Work/Technology 2050 Scenarios and Actions. Welcome to the program, Jerome.
Nice to be here.
Thanks so much. Well, why don't you tell us first about the books you've wrote? What informs the work that you do?
Well, the first book I started writing was the Future Mind book you referred to about the integration of future technology and consciousness into a continuum. But I got interrupted by doing 2 other books. So the first one I actually came out with was with a guy named George Robinson, who got the first PhD in space law, by the way, from McGill University. And he was the main lawyer for the Smithsonian Institution. We wrote a book together called Space Trek, The Endless Migration. And the reason we called it Space Trek is a few years before that, I did the White House briefing that got the Enterprise, the first space shuttle named the Enterprise. And there it was basically the story about if we leave or we have to leave Earth at some point. And so what are the issues involved? What's the politics? What's the military? What's the peace? What's the economics? And that's what that book. The second book was called Linking the Future, Oroville, Arcosante, and Findhorn. And that was 3 experimental communities. Oroville is one in India, southern part of India, that basically starts with no assumptions of government, politics, or economics. You're on your own. You walk in, you're on your own. And everybody's got to start from fresh. Findhorn was an experimental community in Scotland, and they thought they were going to solve all the world's problems with New Age consciousness immediately, or almost, maybe 10 years. And the third one was Arcosante in Arizona, and they thought if you change the architectural environment, as Paulo Soleri, you would change the human consciousness. So they had 3 different assumptions, 3 different continents, etc. But they're all the same in the sense of, hey, let's create something new. And that's what they were about. And so we linked them up so they would learn from each other. So then finally, I got around to writing the main book, which was Future Mind. And that's the idea that people seem to need a myth to hold themselves together. As an ex-student of philosophy, I didn't like that idea, but I had to acknowledge that that's the way humans work. So what future myth could there be that would work about reducing prejudice? Because in my experience, prejudice, prejudging the future. I'm not talking about age prejudice only or sex, but prejudging the future. You have a goatee, therefore you think this way. That's ridiculous. But that's how, unfortunately, we work. So I figured, what's the biggest prejudice of all time? I figured it's between the mystic and the technocrat. The mystic says, share consciousness, you'll solve the problem. The technocrat says, no, you make the tool, you'll save the problem. Well, we got to do both somehow together. And as we progress with technology, as we are talking right now, like, for example, am I talking to you or am I talking to a machine? Well, we say, I'm talking to you. But that's not true. I'm talking to a machine that talks to a machine, etc. So we have already gotten a little bit over this idea that consciousness and technology are separate. They're a continuum and will be increasingly so. And that's what the Future Mind book says. What does that mean in economics? What does it mean in government, et cetera, and so forth? That's what Future Mind's about.
Very hermetic. I've long studied very similar concepts, but it also reminds me a bit of something that's very popular is the Peter Joseph film Zeitgeist, etc. I was sort of wondering if there was a connection there, and it sounds more like a parallel. And you've taken these sort of spiritual visionary communities and decided we need to actually reconceptualize what that means in terms of something that will be durable under human technological progress.
I'll drink to that. Yeah.
And speaking of something that's durable under human technological progress, tell us about the Millennium Project.
Well, the idea was hatched back in 1988 by a guy named Ted Gordon, who was a partner in creating the Millennium Project. who gave us the third stage of the Apollo rocket. So I like to jokingly say when somebody says, well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to do X. I say, yes, it does. And there he is. Anyway, so Ted had the idea that the year 2000 would arrive and microphones would be crammed down our throats to say, all right, what about the next 1,000 years or something like that? And so, as honorable futurists, we should anticipate in the 80s that this would be a requirement in the year 2000. So we should get ready. And he wanted to do a massive study. And I said, there's tons of massive studies, and and they're really good at gathering dust. What we need is a global system that can create studies, that can do training. We need a global system. Now, this was tricky during because the Cold War was still going on in the late 80s. So it was a little tricky. And we actually thought we would do a first study of applying chaos theory, mostly as a metaphor, in writing alternative scenarios of the transition in the Soviet Union to what it has become, unfortunately. And the variables would be chemical weapons, biological weapons, and nuclear weapons. So a heavy deal. And our thought would be we'd have the Russian intelligence and the American intelligence fund it. And we thought that would be an interesting way to begin. Pretty exciting. Well, long story short, it didn't happen. It's way too long to explain. But we instead did a global assessment of what was important around the world. And that eventually led to 15 global challenges over several years. And so one of the things that I would say that we do, and the contribution of the Millennium Project, is that it has given those who read our stuff a way to understand global change as a whole system. Because most people will talk about technology or they'll talk about politics. How do you fit it together? In the same way that you have a respiratory system, a skeletal system, nervous system. We don't understand all the details of the human body, but we all understand enough how the systems work together. Well, that's what the 15 global challenges are. Each of the 15, if it improves, helps the others. And if it goes down, it hurts the others. The same way with the human body. So the 15 global challenges, we update and improve over the 29 years over time. And from that, I am happy to report that since I actually have to update the data every doggone time we do it, I can report to you that we are winning more than we're losing as a species. But where we're losing is deadly serious. So the consequence is we have no right to be pessimistic, but we have no right to go to sleep either.
That's interesting. And also, I took a quick look. You put forward basically during COVID the scenarios of how we would survive or perish.
Yeah, that was really bizarre. Your listener may get a kick out of this. Here we are walking off 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years off into the future, all kinds of far out stuff. And in comes the Red Cross and says, hey, can you write scenarios out a year and a half? Futurists don't do a year and a half. That's geopolitical. We don't do that sort of stuff. And furthermore, as we studied it, there was something like 30 things we didn't know. And this is the beginning. We didn't know what the mutation was going to be like. We didn't know if there's going to be a vaccination. We knew squat. And they're telling us, give us alternative futures a year and a half from now when nobody knows anything. And I'm saying, this is a good way to lose your reputation. Anyway, but we couldn't say no because it was important. And the thing was, the Red Cross was so busy, they didn't have time to think a year and a half down the road of what they should prepare for coming up. So we did. We wrote the scenarios, and it was an interesting exercise of really working with a lot of ignorance.
And I imagine the future in general is constantly like that. It stems from understanding what we don't know and what's the next right thing. That's what I like to say. What is the next step that will lead you to progress and success? So why don't you give us a little sneak peek? I understand your report is coming out in September. Is that right?
Yeah.
So
Inshallah, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us some inkling of any revelations or any hints at what we should be doing?
Oh, well, that's a different question. What we should be. Okay, well, I'll give you one of what you should be doing. I think your listeners should contact their senators and representative and say, what is your position on governing, regulating, making safe future forms of artificial general intelligence? I think that's probably one of the most useful things to people that could take away from this. Why is it so important? There is tons of activity. This is some good news, by the way. I was involved in the early, what are called X.25. It's a device that made internet cheap. It makes a package out of something and switches it. Anyway, getting that around the world in the early 1980s. We did almost no technology assessment. Of course, it was a good idea connecting up computers. We were like magic wands running around the world. Everything was great. Everything was glorious. It was wonderful. No problems. And now the whole world is talking about AI. Is it good? Is it bad? How to make it good? Da, 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 da. So I am thrilled with that progress of humanity. I think we have matured one step in the game. Now, the trouble is, it's just looking at narrow intelligence. Loosely speaking, we say that there's three kinds of intelligence: narrow, general, super. Narrow is what we have now. It has a narrow purpose. It does search, and it drives a car. It does your rewrites your emails, but it's a narrow purpose. General is more like you in the sense that you can look at novel ideas, do novel strategies, make phone calls, do all kinds of stuff, make alliances, etc. Super intelligence is that beyond our understanding and control. So the very nature of super intelligence is that we can't know it and control it like we can anything else. So how do we control what we can't control? And the answer is, before you get there, the transition from narrow to general, that's where we can control it. That discussion is void in the world. And even when somebody says, oh, I know what you mean, and they start talking, and then you realize, oh, they're talking about generative intelligence, Gen AI, general Gen. Even Chinese official document, major document, made that confusion. I was shocked. And so the thing is, we've got to get people to understand, yes, what's going on now. There's a UN resolution was passed on AI. European Commission's got some rules on AI. China's got some rules on AI. I mean, there's all this stuff's going on, and I applaud it. It's wonderful. I'm not going to add to that conversation. What I want to say is we got to look at 2.0 here, folks. We've got, because people make there's statements by all kinds of senior officials. Well, we'll keep up with this. We'll keep up with it. No, when you have a fast car next to you, you can run, but you cannot keep up with that car. What you can do is you can anticipate the road. You can figure out what to do about that future and intervene ahead of time. That we can do. And that we are not doing. The recent report out of the UN Secretary General's office, nice words about narrow, very good. I applaud it. Fabulous. But it does not take seriously the emergency we face, because we could hit general intelligence in 3 years from now.
Wow.
And the forecast, by the way, if you go back 8 years, 10 years, there was a study, a little over 10 years, done by Nick Bostrom out of Oxford. And they said, okay, you hotshots, when do you think AGI is going to happen? Some said, forget it, never. Some said, 100 years. But the median was a 50-50 chance by 2045. 45. Now, if you do your searches yourself among the hotshots, they're now talking like 3 to 5 years, within the decade. How long does it take a country to put together the rules and an enforcement system and to have collaboration with other countries into a global system? Years. So we have to panic now.
Yeah. And when I think about this in terms of enforcement and restrictions, it is similar to other security threats, advanced persistent threats. There's all the sci-fi scenarios of superintelligence arrives and then instantly takes over the world. And I don't know if that's necessarily realistic. It's more likely to live in its box until it escapes and replicates. or conducts its own supply chain attack
Yeah.
and
Well,
gains resources. Go ahead.
the analogy that I would give to that is we all know about kids growing up. So you can think of like the little toddler as the narrow AI. You know, you tell it what to do, you tell it what to eat, you tell it, you're in charge. General AI is sort of like the teenager. You're sort of in charge, but not completely. It can do some original stuff. It'll come up with purple hair and, it'll grow a goatee. It'll do all kinds of stuff that you're not, but you have some basic control. You're still controlling the allowances and so forth. And the adult would be like the super AI. Once they're adult, they're out of your control. They do what they want to, whether you like it or not. And they're doing stuff you don't even know about. Okay. So that's a simple analogy. Now, how do you make sure the adult turns out okay? Well, every parent knows, well, that going from toddler to teenagehood, that's where you can do it. You can give good values. You can give good ethic. You can do all that stuff. Good parenting. That's where we are right now. So I think super AI could be fabulously good for us if we give it the early nourishment, its origins in such a good way that it turns out that way. Not doing that. We're doing it a bit with narrow. I'm on the IEEE AI governance thing, but we're only dealing with narrow, not dealing with general yet. So anyway, back to your first question, what would take away the users? Contact your congressmen, your senators, and say, get with the program 2.0. Narrow, good stuff. I appreciate it. You guys are working on it. You're having hearings. You're doing that stuff. I'm impressed, but you got to do the next stage too.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on the program today and enlightening us. And it's always a good idea to contact your people in Congress. But my question, though, is what would the general AI, what would it not be? Would it not be like HAL from 2001? Would it not be data from Star Trek? What are some of the common misperceptions?
Right. General would not set its own goals. The human sets the goals.
Okay.
There's a guy named Stuart Russell who's been involved in this conversation a long time. And he says, I think it's important to program uncertainty into the AGI so that it's always checking with the humans. Is that okay? Is that okay? Is that okay? So, whereas a Sumer doesn't check with the humans, we're out of the loop. Where general, what it can't do is it can't say, given all the instructions I've been given over the years, this is what I want to do. That's super. Narrow, you're still in charge. You're not in charge how it does its work. And you can be informed along the way, but you still use it as a human.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of sci-fi around programs like issues like that. Like, if it will save 1 million people, do I let 1,000 people die? That kind of a formulation.
Yeah. This is the alignment stuff. This is gigantically difficult. This is you're putting your finger on the most difficult thing.
Right.
As a matter of fact, when people keep saying, well, we'll take like one of the suggestions we're saying is NIST, National Standards for Technology of the United States, and the national labs for the classified military stuff. But that they would create a simulation, sophisticated, the most we got on the planet, and you'd run your AGI through there, see how it operates. So, for example, you could say, let's say one of the thousands of rules says something like, you can't kill more people than fewer people in a situation where you got to kill one or the other. And if it's a choice of age, the olders get killed first, the youngers gets killed later. All right. That most people around the world would say, we hopefully never have to have that, but yes, okay. So imagine you've got now a vehicle that's in a collision situation. And on one side, you've got 10 old people. And on this one side, you got one young kid. So then you put it in the test, and you test it in a simulation and say, well, what does the AI do? Well, let's go find out. I mean, does it just vibrate and nothing? What does it do? So there's tons of contradictions. People say, well, we'll align with human values. We'll have this value, this value. This is what we do in the IEEE. We're sitting there with defining definitions of very precise so that people can audit these things later on. But you can't anticipate every possible future. And so there will be contradictions. So the alignment problem really is massively difficult.
Right. And in the problem you just gave, the AI might recognize that a child cannot grow up to be a responsible adult without other adults to guide it. So would it sacrifice the child so available to help other children?
Well, that's it. That's if those 10 adults are the only adults on the planet. I agree with you. But if there are other adults left over.
Right.
But you're getting into the problem. Imagine you're an AGI and you got to make an answer in like half a second. There's only so many if thens in your brain. Your system.
Yeah.
Of course, they can do quite a lot, but still.
Yeah, and of course, a lot of people are saying, well, why doesn't the car just stop? And to my criticism, I'd say, of course, maybe the gamma function's wrong. I've watched too many hours of people doing, AI training of race cars to miss
Yeah.
that joke.
Yeah. And sometimes you stop and you spin out and you crash anyway.
Right. Gabe, go ahead.
I mean, one thing that I get from history, I think everybody would agree, is that the conclusion is that human beings are irrational, and that even when there's rationality in play, you have clashes of different groups that have different motives.
Right.
So it would seem, and tell me if you agree with me, that AI controlling the planet would actually be a good thing. Would you say I'm right about that?
I want to say yes, but I hate to be misquoted. So I'm not necessarily in favor of that conclusion. But let me talk a little bit. As I mentioned, I'm on the IEEE AI governance thing. These are people from around the world. And the first meeting online, I started crying. It was so beautiful. These people were taking the best, which most people would agree, the best human values and nitpicking like crazy. How do you know it's really that? I mean, to make sure that there's not a misunderstanding of, it's just beautiful. I mean, well, I want your listeners to know that behind that question is an important thing. If we make, I mean, as you point out, the humans do ethical and unethical. So let's call us 50-50, close over here. Well, if you're programming your AI as we are to align with the best human values we can get our hands on, agreements around the world, and then if it's making a decision on traffic, on water flow systems, on medical, et cetera, then the majority of the decisions should be more moral and ethical than we have today. So civilization should become more moral, more ethical than it is today. Yes, that's a logical conclusion. But this is assuming that we do a good job on that transition from narrow to general so that super turns out to be okay. We're not there yet.
So we do have a question from the audience, and I did take a quick look over your 15 goals. Of those, number 13 is energy. How do we get to AGI or super AI, super intelligence, with our current energy systems?
Mm-hmm.
Not likely. As a matter of fact, just as before the part of the scenario as I was writing, just as you guys came on, is exactly that part. And why I have it in there, there's several things. One, we'll probably get to AGI, not with one avenue. Right now, the avenue is large language models, large multimodal thing, throw everything in the world at it, and eventually AGI will pop out at the end. All right. That's gigantic energy, gigantic compute, gigantic air conditioning, water, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't see there's any way we're going to be able to make that work at the moment. Because even if you go to the nuclear power you're talking about, it takes years to build these things, right? And we don't have a whole lot of years to get that energy up. So my guess is that we will probably have new kinds of compression techniques, new kinds of modeling techniques, new algorithms to make us smarter, and maybe even a decentralized system through a whole lot of computers around the world. So large language model is the winning candidate at the moment. That's the lead horse. But there are other horses in the race that don't require that much energy. And I'm hoping that works out, because I don't know how you build enough nuclear power plants to do it. And secondly, I'm still not happy with the waste disposal yet.
Of course.
Now, there's one suggestion, by the way, in the space community, part of the space community, they're now talking about, can we build some stuff in orbit? Because in
Mm.
orbit, we don't have to worry about temperature. We don't have to, and you can do 24 hours solar, etc. You can even put a nuclear power plant if you want to, or the smaller versions of them. And that's in process of being discussed now. I don't know how the discussion is going to come out. It takes a long time to get a space program going, unless we just turn it over to Elon Musk, I guess. I don't know.
I could definitely point at folks here in my town, not necessarily my employer, but a friendly other neighbor called Ultrasafe Nuclear, who has their own process, and they've participated in NASA projects for an orbital nuclear
The orbital one.
facility to back up
Right.
the orbital solar array that's bound to
Right.
be the primary energy source. At orbital solar sounds fantastic. We just have to bootstrap and start developing
Right.
that process. We have lots of great discussions about, how to get into space, how to bootstrap,
Right.
orbital, the
Well,
technological.
I'll tell you
But,
something you may or may not know. I guess you know Peter Glazer. The idea was you use photovoltaics in the Sahara Desert and other stuff, and then you microwave up to a satellite, and then go back down to Athens or Rome or something like that.
mhm.
And then as that cash flow goes, then you build the stuff in larger ones in space, and so it was a bootstrapping process. Now, in 1973, I was there. I was arguing in front of the Congress and saying that we ought to do this because in 73 we had this energy cutoff deal, and everyone said, "Oh my God, Project Independence." I'm going like, "There's nowhere in the graph it's going to work." So the idea was in 73, I was arguing, let's start working on solar satellites. I mean, yes, it's going to take 10, 20, 30 years, but if we had made the decision in 73, guess what? We'd have global energy independence today, worldwide. And the way that they killed it, by the way, just for the record, for the people who like to know these sort of things, there was the argument in 73. A guy said to me in front of the Congress, said, "Okay, we'll study it." All right. So I said, "Great, I'm out of here. My job's done." 2 weeks before the study is released, one of the people, Fred I. Ordway III, who gave you all the things in 2001 that you love, the buttons on the sleeve, the pen that writes, the Velcro shoes. And if you ever see 2001 again, fast forward to the very end. The last name out of thousands is Frederick I. Ordway III, science advisor. Anyway, so he comes to my office and said, "I want to apologize." And he says, because the assumptions were all of the materials, they're built on the Earth and
Oh.
launched on space shuttle. No one was making that assumption. No one. I mean, there's lunar stuff, there's asteroids, there's all kinds of assumptions, but no one was making that assumption. And what they concluded was, is the kilowatt hour would turn out to be about the same as nuclear energy. So why go to a unproven technology when you have a proven technology? And that's what killed the solar satellites. Then, several years later, the Millennium Project enters in, does a study on the future of science and technology for the Office of Science of the Department of Energy on future issues, and then what the high impact stuff. And one was a high impact was looking at solar power satellites, and it was actually a study, and that led to National Science Foundation and Department of Energy and NASA, the three of them together having a joint program for dual use technologies for solar satellites. So if you don't do satellite, you still get a benefit over here. And that was done. And there was a bunch of studies and so forth and done. And then I walk into the briefing of that final stuff, and I'm hearing somebody said, although we didn't consider the non-terrestrial construction possibility, it was called the fresh look, which wasn't fresh. So I sat down next to the NSF guy. I said, did I just hear the fresh study is not fresh? And so that's where it is today. Now there's groups that are still pushing for solar satellites. It's not a dead issue.
How about you tell us about your coming work/technology 2050?
Okay, that people can get now online. If they just go to our website, and we spell it with two L's and two N's, Millennium with a hyphen, not underlined, project.org. And if you go on there, one of your options right up the front, it will be the work technology thing. The key thing on this takeaway would be we can predict unemployment from narrow intelligence. How many people are making trucks that can have AI in it, drive it? how many trucks are going to be delivered. I mean, you can do a forecast of how many unemployed people over it. That's it, because it's a linear, single purpose thing. You can do the same thing with radiologists and hospitals and so forth. You can predict unemployment with narrow, and that should be being done and is being done right now. What can't be done is general, because general cuts across the whole damn game. And so we're saying in the work technology thing is that yes, you can phase stuff in, new trainings and all that sort of stuff for narrow, but you're going to have to go, we think, to a UBI, universal basic income, around 2035, because by 2030, you probably got AGI. Now, the AGI won't have total impact when it comes out. It's just like anything else. You can have a technological capability today, but it doesn't get used today. So it takes a while to do it. So I figure by 2035, we can have serious, very serious unemployment. One of the purposes of writing a scenario, by the way, is to find out what you don't know. As you write it, you go, "Oh, I didn't know that." Right? So when I got out to the point about the UBI stuff, I'm going like, okay, who's got a cash flow projection? Well, Finland was doing some work. Switzerland's going to do it. So I contacted various countries for their cash flow projections to show financial sustainability. How do you do it? Oh, I found out that nobody knew what they're talking about. I mean, I was shocked. And so I've been beating up on countries quite regularly to do a cash flow projection because I don't want to do it myself. It's a lot of hard work. I mean, because there would be different assumptions, when you start, what the cost of living is. Cost of living is, as you take labor out of production, the cost of living should go down. As you have new technologies to tax, the income should go up. There's a point where the two graphs, and then it becomes sustainable. So I would say this goes back to your congressional folks. If they read these things, you can say, okay, you are looking at unemployment impacts of narrow intelligence. Yes. And you're putting together training programs for that. But what's your strategy for general intelligence impact? And that's the purpose of that report, is to bring up that understanding. We got to look at that seriously.
Right. Let me tickle your mind a little bit about sort of democratized competition in narrow AI. Of course, we saw sort of an allegorical thing with 3D printing. In fact, I remember when the MakerBot first came out and people in San Francisco were just getting started and sort of having this onshore 3D printer based replacement to prototyping and precision manufacturing that has started to democratize some systems, but also has revolutionized other systems like additive metal printing for space components.
Yes.
Are we looking at the possibility of doing that with narrow AI, and what kind of policies are going to help us democratize that work?
Well, right now, there's no policies worth it at the moment on this stuff. So and it kills me when someone says, "Don't talk about regulating AGI. You're going to stop innovation." I said, it's going to take years to get the regulations together. Don't worry. No one's in your way. Anyway, but no, the competition on narrow is gigantically going fast. You got to be noticing that yourself. I mean, I'm trying to keep track of this all the time. I fall asleep on YouTube, the latest podcast with Altman or whomever, and I can't keep up. I mean, every day somebody's got some new startup with another approach on something. So the competition is there. It's gigantic. I don't think there's any policy that's necessary to help competition on narrow AI. That is in play.
Amazing. That gives me hope for the next few years that if you are afraid for your job right now, either find a way into an industry resistant to AI or find a way to learn how to use AI. That's
correct.
That's
become a plumber. Go into plumbing.
I think the best advice I always give to people is play with everything you get your hands on. Just play with it. Right. Just play with everything you can get your hands on. And get used to the idea of having your cell phone next to you, running different AIs. If something crosses your mind, well, check it out. So that it's your partner all the time.
Wonderful. Well, I want to give you a little bit of time to express some closing thoughts. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the report, what's coming from the Millennium Project, how people can get involved, and anything else you'd like to pitch to us?
Okay. The State of the Future, inshallah, hopefully will be ready early September, so they can come back to our website there and download it. It will have an executive summary, which hopefully will be the best 10 pages you can read on the future. We'll see if that's true or false. Then it'll have the 15 global challenges, which you can get right now online. We just make a lot of stuff available, and you can read those things. Then it'll have a chapter on what we call the State of the Future Index. This is where we have a bunch of variables, like 30 or so, like, child mortality, things that everybody agrees, if this improves, it improves the whole game. So various variables. And then what we do is there's a way to normalize the stuff. So, what's the best and worst for each variable, what percentage is going through, and then we put them, so that the index shows it going up a certain amount. Then hopefully we'll get around to or the listeners can go around to doing sensitivity analysis. I don't want to get into this; it gets too complex. Anyway, so that's State of the Future Index, just like you've got a cost of living index. This is like 10-year index of the whole game of the world. Then there'll be a bunch of the AGI stuff. We did 55 AGI hotshots on 22 questions. The 22 questions by themselves, by the way, are worth. All right. So then there's going to be also a section on, we did a Future of Life Institute competition. And so our scenarios in the future and some ideas about the future will be there. Then also there's Robots 2050. It's not bad. And then there'll be a conclusion. So that's what it'll cover. It'll be as massive a single tome on the future as exists, as far as I know. It'll be about 300 pages, and you can get PDF, so you can keyword search stuff from time to time. And when I look at other people's stuff, nobody is close to what we do, frankly.
Wonderful. So tell us, if we're interested in contributing to the Millennium Project, what's our next step?
Go to the website. There's an address, and you always send a check. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, etc.
Yeah. And tell us about the hubs. Tell us about joining a hub, founding a hub.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We use the word node because in information theories, where two or more networks intersect is like and the idea is a node should be a little bit government, a little bit business, a little bit university, a little bit NGO, a little bit international organization. And the idea is you throw a question. So a node is a group of people and institutions that cut across those institutional categories, such that when we send out a question like, who knows the most about AGI or scratching your nose, the business person knows who in business and asks on a first name basis, the government, etc. So it's basically it's our management answer to the question of global local. How do you do global local? Well, our nodes do that. They connect the local folks with the global research, and that comes back into the local, translated in training programs and so forth. So the nodes are our hands and feet for a global participatory. That's what makes it a global participatory system, rather than having a PhD from China, a PhD from Russia in Harvard, where they both got their PhDs from Stanford, and calling it a global think tank.
Wonderful. So, of course, we're very interested in having you on the program later. The AI, of course, topic came in really strong, but I'm sure there's lots of stuff we can talk about. We overlap so much on so many of these things. So beyond that, I wonder if any follow-up questions from Gabe or Chris?
No. I mean,
wonderful. Well, we are almost out of time, so I'm going to go ahead and say thank you so much to everyone. You can check us out every Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Ecomodernist channel on YouTube. You can find us on Twitter, on x.com/CarlAlexPauls. You can find us on Facebook at the Ecomodernist Society of North America, and you can find us many other places. Just visit our website, esna.earth. That's esna.earth. Thanks so much, everyone, for your contributions. And remember, emissions first, peace and justice will follow.
Please subscribe to us on YouTube, Ecomodernist channel. Also to subscribe to us on Twitter and Facebook, Ecomodernist Society of North America.
And online at https://esna.earth.